Picture this: tanks rolling down completely empty streets, fighter jets roaring through skies that are frankly way too blue to be natural, and an entire city, a megacity of 21 million people just stopped. This isn't some dystopian movie. No, this is the reality of Beijing's massive military parade, an absolutely mind-boggling show of power and control. But that brings up the big question, right? Why would you go to such incredible lengths? Why shut down one of the biggest cities on the planet for just one event? Well, to really get that, we've got to peel this thing back like an onion and look past all the pomp and circumstance you see on TV. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the show itself. Then we'll dig into the message it's sending to people inside China. After that, we'll check out the guest list, see how history is being rewritten, and finally, what it all means for Taiwan. So let's dive in. Okay, first up, let's talk about the image that's beamed across the globe. This is the big show. It's an incredible display of military might and perfect precision. This is the face China wants everyone to see. I mean, the sheer scale of this thing is just staggering. We're talking more than 40,000 people involved. And that's not just the soldiers you see marching in perfect formation. It's also thousands of civilians and support staff, all part of this gigantic production. And you know, they're not just showing off shiny new toys. The specific hardware on display sends a very clear message. Those hypersonic anti-ship missiles, that's a direct signal to any Navy operating in the region. The advanced drones, the unmanned underwater vehicles, that screams a focus on high-tech warfare. And then, of course, you have the nuclear-capable ICBMs. That's the ultimate trump card, the ultimate statement of power. But here's where you see the huge gap between the TV version and what was actually happening on the ground. You see those cheering crowds? They were all invitation only. For the actual 21 million people who live in Beijing, the city was on total lockdown. We're talking airport-level security just to get into your office building, a complete ban on drones, and people who lived along the parade route were literally told they couldn't go on their own balconies. They even rounded up all the share bikes from the streets. Okay, so let's peel back that next layer. What kind of message does a spectacle like this send people inside China? Because make no mistake, this parade isn't just for the rest of the world to see, it's a huge piece of domestic propaganda. Now, officially, the whole event is framed around history. It's all about commemorating the 80th anniversary of the victory over Japan in what's called the War of Resistance. And that provides a really powerful, patriotic backdrop for everything. But you really have to look at the timing here. This massive party celebrating national strength is happening at a time when things at home are, well, they're pretty tough. The economy's slowing down, youth unemployment has hit record highs, and the property market is in a full-blown crisis. There's a real sense of frustration out there, especially with younger people. So when you put it all together, you see this really clear two-step strategy. Step one, fire up patriotism and national pride with this enormous show of force. And step two, get people to look away from the economic problems and social issues. It's really a classic move. When things are tough at home, you get everyone to rally around the flag. All right, let's peel back another layer and look at who is actually sitting in the audience. Because the VIP guest list for this parade is maybe one of the most telling parts of the whole thing. It gives you a pretty clear picture of China's vision for the world. In fact, some analysts in the West have come up with a name for the core group that showed up in Beijing. They call it the Axis of Upheaval. And the idea here is that it's this loose group of countries, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, that are all trying to push back against the current global order that's led by the US. And honestly, you just have to glance at the guest list to see what they mean. Right there with Xi Jinping, you've got Vladimir Putin from Russia and Kim Jong-un from North Korea. It was actually the first time all three of them appeared together in public. Then you've got leaders from Iran and the military junta in Myanmar. I mean, look at the Freedom House scores. Almost everyone there is from a country that's rated not free. There are only a couple of exceptions. A diplomat from Taiwan put it, well, a lot more bluntly. They called the whole thing a carnival of authoritarians. That quote really sums up how a lot of democracies see this gathering. Not as a world celebration, but as a get-together for like-minded autocratic regimes. Okay, and this brings us to an even deeper, more complicated layer. This is about how the parade isn't just celebrating history, it's actively trying to rewrite it to fit today's political goals. Parades like this aren't exactly new. but their whole purpose seems to have changed. They used to be held every year back in the early days of the PRC, but then they kind of faded out. But under Xi Jinping, they are back with a vengeance. He's held more of these than any leader since Mao, and he often holds them for special occasions, not just National Day, which really seems to be about showing his personal control over the military. And a huge part of these new parades is pushing a very specific story about the past. The official narrative is that the Communist Party was the main force that defeated Japan. But pretty much all historians agree that it was the nationalist forces, the KMT, that actually did the vast majority of the fighting. The narrative also tries to paint the PRC as a key winner of World War II. The only problem with that, the PRC wasn't even founded until 1949. That's 4 years after the war was over. So you have to ask, why bother rewriting history? Well, it really boils down to two things: legitimacy and justification. If you can frame your party as the sole savior of the nation throughout history, you strengthen your right to rule today. And this is critical, this story is then used to back up modern-day territorial claims, especially the claim that Taiwan is a part of China. So finally, let's look at how all of this plays out in the real world. Let's turn our attention right across the strait and see how this whole thing is viewed in Taiwan, because it's a huge point of controversy there. Now, some political figures from Taiwan did choose to go, including a former chairwoman of the KMT, Hung Suu-chu. Her argument was that she was there to honor a shared history of fighting against Japan. She basically said that as a former leader of the party that actually led that fight, it was her duty to be there. But the Taiwanese government, well, they had a completely different take. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a really sharp statement, basically saying that anyone attending this parade is going against what the Taiwanese people believe, and that it sends a totally wrong signal to the rest of the world. So Taipei's official position is crystal clear. They see this as Beijing twisting history to push a political agenda. They see it as a threatening show by an alliance of authoritarians. And they believe it completely misrepresents Taiwan's own democracy on the world stage. The government even warned that people who attended could face legal trouble back home. So at the end of the day, we're left with this question. Is this massive city-stopping parade really a show of strength for the world, or is it more of a calculated distraction for a country facing some serious problems at home? You know, the truth is, it's probably a bit of both. But what it really shows us is a complex picture of a global power wrestling with its past, its present, and its very ambitious future.